Good evening and welcome to CYC News for the 3rd of February 2019 and the 26th of October 17:35 am. I'm David Nada. In today's headlines, Turkish troops injure civilians in northern Iraq, European countries set up payment channel with Iran to sidestep US sanctions, Chicago Good Samaritan puts up 70 homeless in hotel during polar vortex, crowd size reduced for Tokyo 2020 sailing event over tsunami fears, and the Coptic Church celebrates 50 years in Australia, Measles outbreak in the Washington and New York challenging public health systems, seat cushions found are believed to be from missing plane carrying Emiliano Sala. But first to Iraq, where Turkish troops have shot and wounded 3 civilians after hundreds of protesters attacked a Turkish military base in the country's north on Saturday. About 300 protesters near the city of Duhok in Iraq's semi-autonomous Kurdish region stood in front of the base and set 2 military tanks on fire, in condemnation of Turkish airstrikes against civilians in the north. Turkish troops opened fire and wounded 3 civilians. Turkey has been bombing areas in Iraqi Kurdistan, claiming to target Kurdistan Workers' Party militants. According to official statistics released by the local authorities, airstrikes killed 36 people in the Kurdish region last year. Turkey has long fought the PKK, an outlawed Kurdish group responsible for major terror attacks in the country, as part of its bid of national ethnic autonomy. The Turkish Defense Ministry acknowledged the incident in a tweet posted last Saturday, which said, "In northern Iraq, there is an attack on the base as a result of PKK terror organization's provocation. There is partial damage on vehicles and equipment. Necessary precautions have been taken." The European Union and the United States have both named the PKK a terrorist group. European countries have joined forces to establish their own payment channel to Iran and avoid United States sanctions. Germany, France and Britain have been working for months to establish a measure allowing payments between Europe and Iran to continue in the wake of the US withdrawal from the nuclear agreement in May. Now the European countries have officially established that channel, named INSTEX, an acronym for Instrument in Support of Trade Exchange, in a move likely to displease Washington. At a press briefing in Brussels, German Foreign Minister Heiko Maas said, "We have been looking for ways to obtain this agreement because we are firmly convinced that it serves our strategic security interests in Europe. We do not want Iran to get out of this agreement and back into uranium enrichment. This has to do with our security interests in Europe." Instex will be based in Paris and managed by a German banking expert, while a supervisory board will run out of the UK. The announcement comes just over 3 years after the Iran nuclear deal came into effect, limiting the country's nuclear program in return of sanctions relief. In a move likely to ease relations between Europe and Iran, the Instex channel will be used by the EU to sell only food, medicine and medical equipment to the Islamic Republic, with the possibility of expanding in the future. To the United States now, and it's been brutally cold in Chicago with temperatures in the city reaching 20 to 25 below zero last Wednesday. The homeless encampment near the Dan Ryan Expressway in the South Loop neighborhood was heated by 150 to 200 portable propane tanks, many of which were donated by generous citizens. Shortly after noon, one of those tanks exploded and a fire left city officials with no option but to help find shelter for the dozens of people living in the tent city. Jackie Roshaw at the local Salvation Army was ready to welcome them. Little did she know Good Samaritan was paying to put them up in hotel rooms. Thankfully, no one was injured in the explosion, but Major David Byrd, the Illinois State Police Region Commander, said, "This is extremely unsafe." Rechev said she received a call from the city asking her to help provide shelter for homeless community. She later got another call saying it was no longer necessary. She said the Salvation Army is prepared to welcome approximately 70 individuals who were affected by the explosion, but was notified those services were not necessary as the individuals were already being taken care of. "We are thrilled that they are safe and warm." On Twitter, the Chicago Fire Department has warned against the use of propane tanks in cold weather, saying, "During extreme cold weather, we understand that people want to help our homeless population. However, we ask that under no circumstance should anyone donate propane tanks, which are potential fire hazards. Propane tanks can cause potential fires and explosions." Over to Japan now, where the number of spectators at a Tokyo 2020 Olympic sailing event will be slashed, over fears too large a crowd could hamper evacuation in the event of a tsunami. Organizers said on Thursday initially a maximum crowd size of 5,000 was set for a venue on the Enoshima coast of Kanagawa Prefecture near Tokyo, but that will be cut to by over 30% to 3,300, according to Japanese public broadcaster NHK. Citing the organizers, the broadcaster said the committee decided to cap the number of spectators to ensure that everyone can be safely evacuated to higher grounds or hotels if a disaster strikes. The total figure, including staff and media personnel, will be 5,700. Japan sits on the Ring of Fire, a seismically active 40,000 kilometer arc from the boundary of the Pacific Plate to the Nazca Plate that lines the edge of the Pacific Ocean. Experts believe the Tokyo area is due for a major earthquake in the next 30 years. Government Olympics officials have ordered inspections into the tournament venues to ensure they are up to code. Concerns over the danger posed by seismic activity to the 2020 Games were highlighted last year when it emerged a leading Japanese hydraulics company had doctored earthquake safety data for buildings across the country, including some Olympic venues. Some exciting news out of Australia now, and over the past week celebrations have been underway as the country's Coptic Orthodox community commemorate the 50th anniversary of the church in Australia. The late Father Mina Nematullah was Australia's first ever Coptic priest. He arrived with his family from Egypt in 1969 to help establish the Coptic Church in Sydney and Melbourne. Father Mina prayed Australia's first ever Coptic liturgy in Melbourne on January 21 before arriving in Sydney to pray the Mass on January 24. This signified the start of 50 years of history in the respective cities. Following the Sydney liturgy, a reception was held to formally welcome Father Mina and his family. Mr. Fauzi Solomon, Secretary of the Coptic Orthodox Society, delivered a speech saying, "By your arrival, you have fulfilled our dream, which was to pass on our offspring our church, as we regarded the church as the only valuable and solid heritage that they could have. We have left everything back home except our deep faith in the church." Christian Youth Channel has put together a special 50 Years of Coptic History in Australia series to celebrate and commemorate the proud history of the Coptic Church in Australia. In some health news, the current measles outbreak in the US state of Washington has tallied the highest number of infections since 1996. Of the 37 cases, 36 are Clark County and one is in King County. Another case in Oregon is also linked to the outbreak. To contain the spread of infection, a state of emergency has been declared in Washington, where resources have been pulled from other public health services, such as visiting nurse programs. Measles is a contagious virus that spreads through the air via coughing and sneezing. A high fever, rashes all over the body, a stuffy nose, and reddened eyes are typical symptoms which usually disappear without treatment within 2 to 3 weeks. Washington Secretary of Health, John Wiseman, said the first case in the current outbreak had been traced to an international traveller to Clark County, who had contact with the community groups with low vaccination rates. He said, "We continue to have a new case occurring every week and almost by the day. We are fully expecting more counties to have cases as well." Officials have identified 11 healthcare facilities, 13 schools and childcare centres, and over 100 public places, including stores, where people may have been exposed to the virus. So far in 2019, 9 states have reported cases of measles. According to the information from the US Centers of Disease Control and Prevention, they are Washington, Hawaii, Oregon, New York, Pennsylvania, Connecticut, Colorado, California, and Georgia. And in sports, seat cushions believed to be from the plane carrying missing footballer Emiliano Sala have been found, according to Britain's Air Accidents Investigation Branch. As a result, an underwater search using the side-scan sonar equipment is expected to take place this week, covering 4 square nautical miles and taking up to 3 days. The seat cushions were discovered by French authorities on a beach on the northwest coast of France. In a statement released last Wednesday, the AAIB said, "From a preliminary examination, we have concluded that it is likely that the cushions are from the missing aircraft." The aircraft carrying Cardiff City's record signing disappeared from the radar on January 21 near the Channel Islands. And that's all for CYC News. A reminder that you can watch this news bulletin again throughout the week on YouTube. I'm David Nada, and from the CYC studios in Sydney, Australia, have a good night and God bless.